So this is part one of a two-part episode where my friend Barry Page and I have an unscripted conversation. Not only is Barry a friend, he's an insurance agent and has been a practitioner at the Nelson Nash Institute for a very long time, many years. So we had fun and hope you enjoy listening. Thank you. Welcome to the Bank of Life podcast. I'm your host, James Neathery, and today I have my friend Barry Page on here with me. He's very gracious to accept the invitation and make time out of his busy schedule to come and talk with us. And he's a joy. He's a very pleasant, professional, intelligent, salt of the earth kind of guy, and you need to know who he is and why it matters. Barry, thanks for coming on. How are you today?
I'm great, James. Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here and really excited about being on the show.
Well, let me tell you let me share. I mean, we met at the think tank that Nelson used to hold. I think prior to even NNI being organized.
Oh yeah.
And you know, you just. I am attracted to people that are like-minded and pleasant and intelligent. And so I liked you when we first met. And, you know, we've become friends over the years, although we don't see each other all the time. And I just think you're a really cool guy. And I think people should really sincerely know who you are and why it matters. So.
Well, thank you, James.
So tell us about yourself, young man.
All right. Well, yeah, so I'm Barry Page. I live in Ocean Springs, Mississippi. So I'm a Southerner. They call it the Dirty South down here, and
I couldn't tell by your accent.
So I think that really is what attracted me to you, James. When we first met, you're just a good old Texas boy, and you know, Nelson always loved to talk about you, and so I was attracted to you, and then we just started talking over the years and. Through the think tanks, and yeah, it's a pleasure to be on here. As far as me, though, yeah, I've been in the business, and when I say the business, the insurance business for about going on 20 years now, 18 plus years, and
you don't even look that old.
Well, I appreciate that. The hair's been growing out. I keep shaving it and growing it and, you know, starting to kind of get used to it. I haven't had a mustache or beard my entire life. So once kind of the COVID hit, you know, I let it go. And, you know, now the gray ones seem to want to come out is all that grows. So, but yeah, thanks a lot. I was blessed when I got into this business right after, and I had been highly recruited to get into the financial services business. But decided just to go in business for myself, and then well,
give us go back. I mean, you were highly recruited to go into the financial services industry because of your previous work, I would think. Yes. I when I was in college, my sophomore year, a friend of mine asked me to go sell books, and I was like, "What is that?" And he said, "We're going to North Carolina." And I said, "Man, that's awesome." So I look forward to that. I didn't really know what we were going to do. I just knew we had a chance to make some money, and I was going to get to travel. I didn't even know where at in North Carolina. So I showed up to we were working for this company, Thomas Nelson, which all I knew is they were the largest Bible publisher in the world. But we were going to sell some educational books, is what I was told. And we'd get a chance to work on commission, which I didn't really even know what that meant, other than I had thrown newspapers before, and I got paid on commission for that. And I had sold bicycles, was my first job, so they would give me a little bonus commission for selling bikes. And so anyway, I showed up to sales school in Nashville, Tennessee, in an old beat up Starfire, Pontiac Starfire. And I had my bicycle on the top and my surfboard and two skateboards in the back. And they said, "What are you doing, boy? Are you going on vacation?" I was like, "Well, I thought I was." And anyway, that was the start of my sales career, I should say. We started, they took us through a week of training, and I learned a lot. I read a lot of books during that week. I
wasn't a very good reader in school, wasn't a very good student, but we sold books, and I did that not only for that summer, but I ended up doing it for 7 more summers and becoming a sales manager and a trainer and all that. I'd recruit college kids to go out and sell books and Bibles door to door. And we went to numerous states over the years, but I learned a lot about life. I learned a lot about failure. I learned a lot about, approaching people and communication skills. And so that's what the employers at the time, we were told, were looking for was communication skills. So I did that, and then I recruited, like I said, other college students to go out. And now listen to this. College students, like my kids just got out, they're on spring break. My college kids aren't, and you got kids, you know what that's like. But the college kids aren't even getting a spring break this year, but they're home and their classes are online. So we are going to go on a little spring break. But in the summertime, most college kids either, go home, they stay at school, but they get, they take it easy, right? So we were trying to recruit kids to go out and work 80 hours a week, door to door, on straight commission, selling Bibles, right? So, that was good, though. I loved it. It was the best thing I still say to this day. It's the best thing I ever did. And I still tell people, when they ask me what I do, I say I sell books, just like I did back then. And so that's what I do now is I just teach people about this book.
Well, how did you get introduced to that book? And well, let me ask you this: did learning sales and rejection and door to door? I would think the rejection would be a little bit easier if you're selling Bibles, but I don't know. But
no, you'd be surprised. They want to kick it. Like I went on a mission trip last year, and we were giving away Bibles, right? Yeah. And so I busted up in there like, well, this will be easy. And we went to Hawaii on this mission trip. So it wasn't a bad trip. We had to live, without air conditioning. We didn't have the luxury accommodations. But anyway, we were giving away Bibles.
Slumming in Hawaii. Sorry.
Yeah. Hey, but believe it or not, people, they lock the doors. They see you coming. They don't want that. So right. We would actually keep the Bibles or the books. We'd kind of hide it outside the door, keep it in the car until we actually got invited. And then once they said, well, I'd say, give me a minute. Let me run out to the car real quick. So we'd run out there and get our book bag, we called it. And so, yeah.
It'd be like, it would seem to me that, rejection would maybe create a burning desire to read the Bible in between stops.
Yeah.
Looking for inspiration.
Well, believe it or not, and this part of my testimony, but I was actually saved on the book field. I believed in God and Jesus, but I had never really been saved. And I was sitting on a front porch step, actually a porch swing on a guy's front porch, and started showing him the Bible. And he told me his story, and right then and there, I accepted the Lord, and he became my Savior. So it was a real learning experience. But that was my very first summer, and I went on to do it, like I said, many more years, and then recruit after that. So yeah, it was a different experience. But no, people didn't necessarily open up unless they were Christians and they were, avid churchgoers maybe. And we had a great study Bible, and so it wasn't a hard sell. But you mentioned reading the Bible in between. You want to hear that story?
Yeah. Yeah, I love you, knocking on the door selling Bibles, and you're sitting on the front porch swinging to south somewhere, and some guy leads you to the Lord child.
Led me to the Lord. Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. Well, there was a guy that, came to sales school, and they didn't. He went up to the sales. Here's the story I heard. Right, so the sales manager, my sales manager, sales director. He went up to his office and asked the secretary. He said he wanted to to come sell Bibles. And she said, well, you had to talk to Mr. Cruz, sales manager. So he let him in. He said, come on in. He said, sir, I want to sell Bibles. And he said, come back again. And he said, well, I heard I can sell some Bibles. And he says, son, you couldn't do this. I don't know, if this is for you. So he left, and he came back a couple of days later and said, sir, I really want to sell Bibles. He says, look here, boy. He says, I'm going to go ahead and give you some Bibles, and you can get started. And he gave him a box of Bibles, and he said, you go out there and sell them. And he thought that'd be the end of them. So we had sales meetings on Sundays after church and everything, and get ready for the week. And old boy comes in there, and he said, need some more Bibles. He says, well, sit down. We're going to have our meeting. And so we had our meeting. He says, stand up. Tell us, how'd you sell all them Bibles? He says, well, I went up and knocked on the door, and they said, well, what are you doing? He says, I'm got Bibles. And they said, well, we're not interested. And he said, well, I could read it to you, or you can buy it. So needless to say, he sold a lot of Bibles, and but
so
no,
then they made him manager, right?
yeah. So but that's no, it was tough work, but I loved it, and taught me a lot. We learned to deal with problems when things happen, as they always do. Just having a talk with Andrew a little earlier about Murphy's Law, and how if something's going to go wrong, it will, and it would go wrong, and we just had to learn to deal with it. Car breakdown, we had to walk. We'd walk out in the country, and
no cell phones.
People tell us no.
Pay phones, no 30 miles apart.
No, we didn't have cell phones back. This is in the 80s and early 90s, and no, we didn't have cell phones, and we had to walk or ride a bike, or we'd hear no. We were supposed to knock on 50 doors to get 20 to 25 people to talk to us, and then maybe 10 of them would listen to us, and then if we saw 1 to 3, that was our goal the first year. So it was just the numbers, knock on as many doors, and like I said, if you knocked on 50, maybe you'd sell 1 to 3 that day.
So the insurance industry looked at this bold young man selling Bibles, not afraid to knock on the doors and talk to strangers. And then they promoted, the other guy that's like, I'll read you the Bible or you could just buy it. They promote guys like that to the home office.
Yeah.
And then they recruit guys like you that are not afraid to knock on the door. And I could see the financial industry, I'm just saying, recruiting you. So tell us about that.
Actually, about, I'd say 8 out of 10 people quit before sales school was even over. And then probably another one quit. So only about 1 out of 10 would make the whole summer. It was 12 weeks. My second summer, it went 45 straight days in Macon, Georgia, over 100 degrees. So we were always in the South, and Bible Belt, they call it. The summer before me, they sold in Texas. Now, I never got to go sell in Texas, but they had some good stories about that.
You'd have probably sold more. We like the Bible. We're not ashamed of it. We read it down here a lot.
Hey, same here. Yeah.
All right. So then did you get into the financial services industry? Did you knuckle under to the recruitment?
Well, personally,
they said, boy, you're selling Bibles. You can make so much more money in the financial services industry.
That's what they told us. And actually, 2 of my good friends, my sales manager, that was a younger guy, he went on to work with Lehman Brothers. And then my actually roommate, he went on to work for Smith Barney. And, so they were highly recruited, and they did well. They're both still in the financial services business after 30, 40. Now, one of them has come and gone after every crash. He seems to kind of retire, and then he gets back into it. But
well, neither one of those. Lehman Brothers crashed in, I believe, 2008, 150-something-year-old company.
Yeah.
And then Smith Barney, they've been out for a long time. I don't know.
Yeah, the Solomon Smith Barney and Citigroup and Travelers and all that. They kind of made some changes. So a lot of these companies, merge, and all of that, how they get together.
Yeah, it's very profitable for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me reach back behind me here. I'm gonna grab something. Here's really what changed. I'd say probably my life is, along with reading that Bible. When we went to sales school, they would give us 3 or 4 books every year, right? Paperback books. And this company, Thomas Nelson, not only were they the world's largest publisher of Bibles, but they were the world's largest publisher of self-help, motivational type books, right? So Zig Ziglar, Norman Vincent Peale, Dennis Waitley. I got to see Dennis Waitley and Zig Ziglar in a small room, about 20 people, when I was 19, 20 years old. So that was good stuff. But I know you know this book here, right?
Oh, yeah, The Greatest Salesman in the World, Og Mandino. Yep.
Yeah, and so, Og was a life insurance salesman, right? Most people don't know that. And, of course, this book here.
Oh, yeah, The Richest Man in Babylon.
Yeah, so I keep those, and like there's my friend Dennis Waitley. He's
put that over, move it to the left a little bit. Okay, How to Win Friends. Yeah, Dale Carnegie.
Yeah. So, and then of course this one, and this guy was
rich.
W. Clement Stone was one of his personal people that he trained, and of course about him. So, yeah, we started reading those books, and that really got me. Again, I hated to read. I could not believe, and you hear this whenever we ask them to read this book. What do they tell us? Oh, I don't read, right? I can't read that. Yeah. And, but there's something about a good book, James, something about a biography and real history, which we don't get that much of in the books today. Everything's science fiction, and I got so mad when my kids were in school. My kids, they were in the gifted reading and stuff, and go to the library and get them books. And it's just malarkey, all this stuff. So anyway, I got addicted to reading with those books there. And that's really what formed that habit of reading. And I love to read now. So I read a book a month at least now, if not more. Perfect.
What are you reading?
Right now, of course, I'm reading some financial books. I tried to read this one here recently, and this is Ed Slott here. But yeah, I always keep a couple books on my desk and carry them around, read them when I can.
I went to about a month ago. Went to a little K-pop store, Korean pop, and I bought a miniature How to Win Friends and Influence People hardback. Can fit in your front pocket.
That's awesome.
And so I bought it just, and a couple of others, and I bought it just because I thought it was a novelty, and I'm reading it currently. It could fit in your pocket.
That's awesome.
A hardback.
Yeah.
I thought that's the coolest thing ever. If I ever write a book, I'm going to have one, produced in hardback that can fit in your front pocket.
Yeah. So I've got a hardback version too that came from an old library that
So how did you run into so did you get into the financial world or
Yeah, so I didn't really like the first company that interviewed me over in New Orleans I went over to, and it was more or less like the Wolf of Wall Street. It was a big giant boiler room, they call them, and everybody's in there on the phone and screens everywhere, stock market, and it just sounded like, high pressure sales. And I people want, they tell me times, and they think the book business knocking door to door is high pressure sales. But again, it was just numbers. My approach was, hey, I'm the boy from Mississippi, been talking to all your neighbors. Do you hear I might be coming by? And they'd say, no, we didn't know you was coming by. And, I just go up to see them and say, look, I'm just showing folks these books and Bibles. Y'all want some? Basically is all it was. And, so that, but when I saw or got interviewed, in the financial services, it seemed a little, cutthroat. And it was all a lot of, even the interview process was just like, I don't know. So I didn't go for it. I decided, I went back to work. I moved to Nashville to work for this company, and I trained and recruited these guys. And while I was actually up there, I decided to follow my passion, James, which was I had grown up. I quit playing sticks and balls about the 8th grade, and I started riding skateboards and bicycles. And so I lived in Mississippi. There wasn't much going on as far as that goes. So when I moved to Nashville, it was a much bigger city, and I opened up a skateboard park where we did bikes and skateboards. And so I got out of the book business at that time, and I ran that business for about 10, 12 years. Actually, it was about 12 years total, but we were open 10 years. And we had just had our second child, and my wife wanted to move back to Mississippi. So, having kids now, figured I've been raising all these kids on their bikes and skateboards, for all these years. And it's ironic that a lot of those kids, we were thought of growing up as little punks on skateboards. And that's the way most people looked at those kids. But I enjoyed raising them. And now they're all adults. They're in their 30s, and some of them even 40s now. And so it's really good to see, communicate with them on Facebook and stuff, and see that they've got kids of their own. So that's good to see that they all turned out okay. And I think I turned out all right. And, but anyway, when we moved back to Mississippi, I decided, what am I going to do? Well, I was able to sell my business successfully up there, and actually sold 2 businesses. And I was an entrepreneur. That book business taught me about entrepreneurship. It taught me that profits are better than wages, right? Yeah. And that's what I learned, from all that. And I realized that I didn't really want a job per se. So I've never really had too many jobs where I worked by the hour in high school and college a little bit. And I took one job right out of college for a short time. Did work with a Fortune 500 company. But anyway, when I came back down here, I realized that I had to do something. I took a year off, and I was like, well, I got to get back to work. I got kids to raise. I can't retire at 35. That's what I was. And so I was like, what? And I realized, James, it's a funny thing. When you're not making money, what are you doing?
You're spending money.
Spending money. And I realized that, man, you can drain that piggy bank real quick. Yep. So I had to go back to work, and I was like, what am I going to do? And I was like, I started looking at this life insurance business. Now, bear in mind, I had nothing but good feelings about life insurance.
Right.
Okay. I had read all these books, right? And these books were about, life insurance. They were about sales, and they were about life insurance. And I was like, well, life insurance is a good thing. I can do that, and it would be noble. And my dad, by the way, my real dad was in a car wreck when I was about 10 years old. And he was in his late 30s, and it didn't kill him, but it disabled him. And he was disabled for about 10 years. And now being in the business, I realize, that a lot of people are disabled. But back then, I didn't realize it too much. And that about bankrupted our family. So we felt that. And then my dad did die. My mother was remarried while I was in college. I got to tell you a little backstory here to catch up. But when my mother remarried, my stepdad didn't have a lot of money. He was a policeman. He retired as a policeman. But when I was in college, again, these companies were recruiting me. I was just out of the, in the book business, basically. And this Primerica was real big in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, where I went to school. Yeah. So the biggest recruiter in the country lived right there. He had played for the Golden Eagles and the Saints. And so they recruited me, and they came by the house one night, actually, and they really wanted to see my parents and sell them some life insurance, right?
Right.
And they wanted me to go to work for them, but I didn't go to work for them. But my dad actually bought one of those 30-year, my stepdad, term insurance policies, right?
Yep.
Now, I got in the business just before that policy ran out, and it literally ran out within 3 months of my being in the business. Okay.
Wow.
And so, of course, he couldn't afford to get a new one at that point. So he paid on a policy 30 years. Do you know how much my mother got from that?
Zero.
It expired a month before he died. He had throat cancer and he died. So I tell you those stories because that really put into my heart, well, man, there's a lot of people out there that don't know anything about life insurance. And at that time, I knew nothing about infinite banking, okay? But I decided, hey, I want to get into the life insurance business. I said, that'll be a noble profession. I can help people. And, I had learned just what Primerica had taught me about, buy term and invest the difference. But I didn't really know about this whole life stuff other than that's what people used to own, right? And it sounded good. People owned it for years. So anyway, that's how I decided to get into the business. There was a company that Zig Ziglar was a spokesperson for. And so I said, well, hey, I knew a lot about Zig. And if Zig is a spokesperson, then, hey, I'm gonna sign up with them. And it turned out to be kind of not the company I wanted to work for. And I eventually, probably about 6 months into the business, I met Nelson face to face. I had just got linked up with a mutual company, but anyway, that's
how'd that happen?
How I got into the business.
Don't jump over that. What how old were you? What year are we looking at? And how did you meet Nelson Nash face to face?
Yeah, this was probably 2005. I had gotten the business in 2004 is really when I got licensed. 2003, I started, getting going. But so I got licensed with Guardian and learned that whole, LEAP planning, financial planning, right? But I had a client actually that asked me about this book. He said, "Man, have you heard of this book?" And I had heard of it, and I had kind of just skimmed over it, but I didn't know much about it. I was like, well, you got to be careful with that stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff out there, right? And but I was learning about participating dividend paying life insurance, so I was a big advocate. But so I went to this symposium down in Florida, and just by happenstance, Nelson Nash was there, and we sat down at the same table and sat next to him and Mary and just started talking. And it turned out he had a son named Barry. Mm-hmm. And so we hit it off. And this man, he was a walking, talking encyclopedia. He knew more about history and the Bible. I could just tell in about a 10-minute initial conversation that I was attracted to him. And ended up, we sat there and talked after we ate. But that's how I got to know Nelson. And I went back and, man, I dove into that book after that. And I went back and talked to my client that was asking me about it, and ended up inviting Nelson down, for a seminar not too long after that. And, back then we didn't, have the practitioner program, but Nelson came down, and actually, was it you that put out that book, Hosting Nelson for Dummies or something like that?
No. Well, I mean, I didn't put out a book, but Nelson early on one time, because, we put together a pretty good event.
Yeah.
At one time we did 27 events in 1 year.
Yeah.
And, Julie, my sister, was the event coordinator. But Nelson early on, he said, James, can I share what you're doing? Can you kind of codify what it takes to put a program together? And so I don't remember, it wasn't a book, but we put together a list of what you should do, how to do this, when to do that, when to do this. And, you should have books out there available and just different things. So,
well, in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was those books out that were black and yellow. It says, you can do this for dummies or whatever, right? And so somebody had done a little, maybe it just was the sheet you're talking about. I don't know. But I read that. And anyway, I was I was excited to have Nelson, and that was the start of it all, getting to know him, then started going to all the think tanks course.
Did you buy policies when you came to town? Did you buy more on yourself?
Oh, yeah. I own lots of policies and started buying them immediately.
And so you became a member of the Nelson Nash think tank. Back then you had to have either hosted Nelson. I don't remember what the requirements were to become a member and get an invitation to the think tank. But I'm quite sure, I'm positive that we met at a think tank, but I don't know which one it was and how far back it was. But
yeah, that's where we met, at the think tank. Nelson always talked about you. And so the first time, it was, you said you hosted 27. That's a lot, man. I hosted 50 events one year myself, but it wasn't these times. It was when I was had the skateboard park, and we would do something every weekend, right? And it about killed me. Yeah. So my first seminar, and I don't know what it was like for you, but I was just trying to get butts in the seats, right? And I didn't, there was no cost to get there, and I was having to pay Nelson and pay the expenses and all of that stuff. And I'm new in the business. So, man, I was winging it. I was like, well, man, this stuff's going to cost me more than it's worth. But I did it, and I'm so glad that I did. And I kept doing it after that. But
I got to be clear, the 27 events, they were not all Nelson. In that year, we probably did 3 or 4, hosted Nelson 3 or 4 times. But we had other speaking engagements, and I was doing retirement seminars prior to meeting Nelson, and so we were still doing those. But it is a lot of work. People don't understand how much work it is, and and you're underwriting the whole thing. You're paying for all the expenses, no matter what it is: the hotel, the room, the food, the travel, and you're paying for everything. And there's no guarantees of anything. But isn't that the whole basis of capitalism? You're presenting a benefit to the people that are interested, and not everybody's interested, and the ones that are and that take advantage of it, it's going to benefit them more than it did you. It's going to benefit them more than it did Nelson. It's going to benefit them and their family more than it did the life insurance company if they purchased life insurance. And so I think you used the word noble earlier, and I agree with that. I think the life insurance industry at its core is a very noble profession. It's a very noble financial product. It's a very noble financial tool, and it serves a clear need and really multiple needs. And that's kind of what Nelson brought to the whole financial world, that, just added scale to life insurance and clearly identified and really codified the idea that your need for finance is greater than your need for death benefit. And if you build policies with that in mind, you're going to wind up with more death benefit than you can get past the underwriters. Oh my gosh.
Absolutely. And, I told you when I first started thinking about getting in this career, I had nothing but praises and just nothing but had heard good stuff about life insurance. So it took me back whenever I actually got into the business and started talking to people about these things, how much some people hate life insurance. Yeah. Some of these radio personnel, I was like, what in the world do they have against it? I just don't understand. And it's so funny, James, and we'll, can elaborate on this if you want, but, I tell people all the time, because it's so funny. We were talking before this, we got started here, just about the sensationalism. People get excited about the stock market, about risking money, right? And I live in a little quiet town on the Gulf Coast here, but you can cross the bridge literally 5 minutes from here over the bay, and you're in Biloxi, Mississippi. Mm-hmm. Of course, that's like the third largest casino spot in the country. And so I tell people all the time, if you want to gamble with your money, man, you just cross the bridge right there and you can gamble all you want at the poker tables there, So I just don't understand it, this, thing that people have about wanting to risk and lose money. I've lost money. I've lost a lot of money. And I don't like to lose money. It hurts as you get older, right? It hurts worse, I guess. And so I always ask people, when I first talk to them, I just ask them, have you ever lost any money? And most people have never lost any money. And most people have never had anybody or, they haven't been affected by disability, or, most people have had people in their family die, but to have somebody die young or whatnot. And, so yes, we do play a very important role in people's lives. And I just wish people would, maybe open up their mind and just think a little bit. Nelson was always a big advocate of thinking, and with all that's going on in the markets in the world today, man, you don't have to think too hard to realize that these financial institutions and government aren't necessarily on our side.
It's like the middle-aged woman, Karen, they use it in a derogatory way. Karen, don't be a Karen.
Right.
I look at what's going on with the COVID. You look in the markets. You look around the world and what the central banks are doing and the governments are doing around the world, and it's like the people have been, and they're showing signs of psychological abuse. It's like the Stockholm syndrome. The abused not deifies, but looks up to the abuser, and become dependent and okay being dependent upon the abuser. It's, I'm not a psychologist, but, I've been around people a long time and like people, and I'm observant. My heart goes out to them. But I think that what I have done is, I never was a big fan of using the word terminology Karen anyway. But now I would never use Karen. I call them Cindy's. They're Stockholm syndrome. They're Stockholm Cindy's,
Right.
Anyway, so you met Nelson down in Florida. You're sitting next to an author of a book that you kind of read because a client gave it to you. I love that.
Yeah.
And so you can't spend 5 minutes with Nelson Nash without, becoming intrigued. And I bet that was the first thing you did was read that book, or pretty short order once you got home.
Yeah.
Then you hosted him. And then it was really about trying to get people in the seats back in the day. Why should they come? They don't even want to read. But you did it more than once. You hosted him more than once, right?
Oh, yeah, several times, yeah.
I have a friend, he's retired, sold his practice in Nacogdoches, Texas, and he used to, him, Ricky Hurd.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I violate anything by mentioning his name, but Salt of the Earth, him and his wife and his whole family.
Yeah, Leslie. Yeah, love them all.
They, they hosted Nelson, an awful lot, and I would go down there a couple of times, and we were talking one time, this is several years ago, and now this man had a thriving PNC business in Nacogdoches, Texas. I would think that most of the people in that town, the oldest town in Texas, one of them, would have to know who Ricky Hurd is.
Right? Oh, yeah.
And one time he was hosting Nelson. We had a conversation after him, like, Ricky, how'd it go? He said, James, not one person showed up. I'm like, no way. He said, yeah, it wasn't a problem. He said, my daughter got to spend 9 hours or 8 hours with Nelson Nash one-on-one.
Wow.
He said,
that's awesome.
I would do that again and again.
Every penny, yeah.
And so we never had that experience where no one showed up, but we had the experience that, only 8 or 9 showed up.
Yeah.
And it's kind of disheartening until you just realize what's really what is really going on, and the people that want to be there will be there, and the people who don't want to be there won't be there, and that's perfect. You only want the people who want to be there and want to hear. Nelson,
right?
As said it was more caught than taught, and you mentioned losing money. You almost have to have had lost money or had a bad experience with third-party lenders or creditors. And if you've had a bad experience and you be dependent upon the third-party financial industry or the third-party lenders in the financial industry long enough, and you'll have a bad experience, in my opinion, whatever that looks like. But
sure.
If you've lost money, if you've been beholden to the third-party banker and you read Nelson's book, it will resonate with you quickly or repulse you. And I'm cool either way,
Right.
I love it.
Exactly.
But, we had lots of seminars too where we'd have 50, 60, 70 people in the room, and you didn't do anything different putting it together. And so, we just did the work in front of us and got to meet cool people. So,
yeah.
How many think tanks did you have the opportunity to attend? Do you know?
Well, I was just looking, actually, I've got most of the DVDs, and they date back to 2007. Of course, we used to have 2 a year.
Yeah.
So I went to all of them until, they started doing them 1 a year, and I think I missed one. But it's been a lot. I you might remember several years ago, David had people stand up, and so it was, in the teens, however many that I've been to, but
perfect.
I quit counting. Yeah, I love it. I always enjoyed it. When I was a sponge, I was new in the business. You got to understand. Yeah. First time I went, my mind was blown because they took Nelson's idea. I mean, the first time I went there and I saw some of these people talking about trading options and this and that, and maybe we can talk about all the stuff that's going on these days, but it just blew my mind, right? So I just dove into it and started learning, and then Nelson had come back and kind of put me in my place and say, look, it doesn't have to be this complicated, right? It's pretty simple, and that's kind of my approach. I love simple. Keep it simple. That's really my approach to everything. People want to, take things and always add to it, and that's fine. But I like to keep it pretty simple.
Yep, I agree. Nelson made it. Well, he made the same comment several times. We'd listen to a presentation or whatever, talk about a presentation here or there, and he would say, "Man, if you need all those squiggly lines to convey this idea, you're doing something wrong."
Something wrong, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I know that. This year, 2021, the think tank was virtual,
right?
And we were experiencing snowvid here in Texas, and I live out in the country, and the Wi-Fi didn't exist, so I didn't, get to attend. I think I was logged in maybe 30 minutes, the entirety of, in the entire time, 30 minutes here, 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there. But so I missed it. But in 2020, you presented, I believe it was 2020.
Yeah.
And, I presented as well, and you don't really get to hear everybody. I mean, the way they set it up, they tried to give the attendees the opportunity to not miss anyone.
Right.
But I had the opportunity, and I wasn't missing yours come hell or high water, so I sit in on yours. And you did an outstanding job. Very simple.
Thank you.
Very simple. And so do you have that available for your clients on your website, or do you do anything with that, or you just, for the benefit of the practitioners, which is noble and worthy? But
that particular talk, I don't share that with clients because it was geared with agents and all as well. But I do. That's the same basic talk that I give to my clients. So yes, it's available. I've made videos. It's pretty simple, James. It's just
very powerful. I mean, that was like a case study to me.
It was. I showed different cases of clients, and I found that older people, and I'm one of them, people over 50, just have a different outlook on their money than people in their 30s, right? And so when I first got in the business, most of my clients were in their 30s and 40s. But as I progressed and started talking more about retirement, and of course, Nelson didn't really like that word, he called it passive income time. Right. And so that's what I started teaching people about, and just using infinite banking later, because, what's the first thing that when you talk to somebody in their 50s and 60s about it, what do they usually say?
I'm too old.
I'm too old. I should have started that 20 years ago, right? And so Nelson would always do the oak tree thing. Well, if you when's the best time to plant an oak tree, right? And it's yesterday, today, 20 years ago, right? So that's the approach that I took. So I would just show them how to use it, how they could crank up a policy, and then actually use it for cash flow later on in life in their 60s and 70s, so they don't run out of money, which and they don't have to depend on the stock market, and they don't have to necessarily get caught up in that, and they can shift their assets. When they're 60, 59 and a half, they can start moving those things without penalty. They're going to pay the taxes anyway. And so if they just want to put it in a safe place, you can see up here my tax-free buckets up there.
Is that what those are?
Yeah. So
taxable, tax deferred, and tax free. I mean, I can't see that far. I can't.
Yeah, that's it. That's basically tax me now, tax me later.
Tax me again, Uncle Sam, please. I got the Cindy syndrome.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So anyway, that's it. Just depends on who I'm talking to, but it's just a simple way to actually, all of Nelson's examples in the book show taking money out later, but I don't think people really grasp it because they're looking at financing things, right? And the vehicles and the log trucks and things of that nature. And so when you actually look at it, for income, for cash flow, it's a little different. And, Nelson always liked to talk about business in his seminars, right? And so he would ask, are there any business owners here, right? And business owners tend to get this concept a little bit better than people that work, for wages, because they're used to profits and expenses and things of that nature, right? And they understand cash flow a little bit. So, but on the same token, being a business owner for, 35 going on 40 years now almost, business owners can be a little unorganized and don't like to keep records all the time and this and that. So it can get convoluted if you want it to, but it really doesn't have to be. It's just about a place to store money and a place to access money, whether it be for business, financing, or just for cash flow and retirement.
I agree. I think simplicity is a virtue. Complexity is what it is, but the more complex something is, the more fragile it is. And it really doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be quote unquote dumbed down either. I mean, right, but it's very simple. And very powerful. I think most people today are, Nelson said it, it's where I got it, I repeat it. It's like most people's understanding of life insurance is based on someone else's misunderstanding or misconception of life insurance. That's so true today. And when you look at life insurance, dividend paying whole life insurance by a mutual company that hopefully has no intentions of demutualizing, I won't go into that, but very powerful when you compare it to everything else that you can do or most people do in the financial world. And everything we do in life is going to be compared to what other people are doing.
Wow.
And if they're going backwards and we're going forwards, we're twice ahead of them. So our conversation went a little long, so we're going to cut it here, make 2 parts out of it. So we had fun. Hope you enjoyed listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you for joining us on the Banking with Life podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe and click on that little notification bell. Otherwise, join us on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher for weekly content.